Is it tough love or toxic household? Welcome back to After Our Happy Hour. We are your chaotic but cathartic hosts. I'm Sharon.
I'm Vicky.
I'm Jamila.
And in today's episode, we haven't talked about this topic much, or it's been a while, but we're basically going to talk about whether we think we're in a tough love situation or a toxic household when it comes to family, because we live in an Asian household and there's a very fine line between those two. So I think we're just going to talk about it.
It's going to be a very healthy family therapy session here.
Teach us what you have been learning in therapy, Vicky.
I haven't even started.
Well, you did. You just switched therapists.
But he wasn't, I don't want to say he wasn't good. I think we just didn't vibe well because he didn't know what to do with me.
Well, he is the problem. Like the fact that
it started with he.
But yeah, we came up with a couple questions. I think decent questions. So I guess we could just go straight into it.
Yo, do you guys hear my dad? I don't know why he's so fucking loud for. It's gonna irritate me. Anyways.
That's a great segue.
What do you say is tough love and what do you say is toxic household? Do you guys have an example?
Okay, see, the thing is, I've never ever thought I was ever in a toxic household. And to this day, I still don't really think it's the toxic household for the most part. I would say some parts are definitely tough love and some parts are definitely just unreasonable what they think is tough love. So for me personally, I don't really ever categorized that I've been in a toxic household. Until I feel like we talked more about it, that I'm like, wait, is that actually kind of toxic?
This was my question because I was thinking about it. I was like, how do you know if you're in a toxic household? Because I had a conversation with someone a couple months ago about toxic relationships. And then I was like, or this person asked, would you say I'm in a toxic relationship? And I was like, yes, 100%. And they were like, really? Because I wouldn't. And I was like, is that what a toxic relationship is? Like, you just don't know.
Yeah.
So my thing going into this conversation was based off what we know about each other's households. What do we think about each other? Like, would I be able to tell Vicky, or like what Jam and I think, Vicky, I think you are or not in a toxic household, or like Jam, me and Vicky think you are or not? Like, I'm curious. You know what I'm saying?
See, I feel like family is really hard and it's very different because family, you can't choose. You can in other people's world, but like your family is your family by blood. So like you can't say, oh, I'm in a toxic household, or it's harder to say that you're in a toxic household because then when you acknowledge that it's toxic, you want to get out, and you can't really do that with family because they're your family. And I have a hard time talking about family, which I'm sure we all do, because you don't really want to talk bad about your family, or you don't want to be like, they're like the worst assholes and like they did all this to me, because at the end of the day, like they put food on the table, they gave you a roof over your shelter, and like we're all grateful for that. But that's not the conversation we're having here. So if you want to flame us for being ungrateful, then get out. Because we're being honest here, okay? We want people to see. That's the thing, is like you don't know that you're in a toxic household because you're willing to justify it with everything else, and that's what we're here for. We're gonna be like, yeah, it's toxic and here's how you can work through it. But I don't know if I would say that we're all in like super toxic households, because I've seen and heard like really, really toxic households.
I mean, I think there's like some certain things where we're like, is not the most appropriate thing for a parent to say.
Yeah.
But I think coming from an Asian culture, if you put it in that perspective, it's like quote unquote okay to say, because it's not like just like our parents are doing that. It's like if you go to in Asia, like all parents are like that. So I feel like because I personally am so used to that, it doesn't feel toxic to me because that's all I know. Versus for someone else who doesn't grow up in the same culture, they're like, wait, that's like, you know, that's so out of line, or that's so not right. But so even to this day, I still don't feel like we're in toxic, or at least I'm not in a toxic household.
And it's not like we're constantly stuck in like a negative space with family. There's also like good times, and you appreciate those times with family. That makes it worth it. And so I wouldn't say that it's completely toxic, you know?
I think I'm just confused. Like, is that normalization?
I don't think it's normal, but what family has a completely like happy and normal household?
Agreed.
I think it's just also the culture we live in. Like, we live in America, so obviously we have a lot of other households of different cultures that we compare it to, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, they're not like that, but we're like this. But if you are back in Asia, that's the norm. And Western is like not the norm.
I will say that, like, for us, we have hella generational trauma. What our parents have experienced, and in return, they kind of like let it out on us, even though that's not our problem to have.
Dude, I saw this beautiful TikTok when I had it. It was basically about this mom was not yelling, but she was like very passionately talking about how when I was growing up, like I had to share food with like 12 of my siblings and blah 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 blah, right? And then someone stitched it and was basically explaining, like, he said a lot of different arguments, but one of the things was like, why are you glorifying the fact that your parents had 13 children, like when they clearly couldn't provide for you, where you had to share food with 12 other siblings? Like, that's not a struggle that you should be glorifying. Like, as a parent, like, you shouldn't have put your kids in that situation, stuff like that, right? Where I think he was trying to break that line of like you feeling bad that your parents had it a lot worse, so therefore it's like generational, like you just keep that going. And then his moral of the story was like, you gotta stop, like you have to stop that. I think that's the hard part of like, we're not saying it's toxic or like, I don't know.
See, I feel like the hardest part or the hardest struggle that I have with my parents is like telling them that I don't need to struggle to build character. Because in their minds, it's like, I went through all of this and now I can achieve all these things in my life because I am grateful, or I am more prone to being like, oh, I used to have it so bad, so now it's so good. And I never had to go through like struggling to immigrate to US or like all the struggles that they have. But that doesn't mean that I don't acknowledge that I'm grateful for what I have. But in return, I want you to know that I'm being excessive about turning on the lights or like having it on all the time is because I know we can afford it. You don't need to make those sacrifices anymore. And that's like the generational difference. And I feel like that's kind of toxic because I get yelled at a lot about like minor things like that, where I'm like, but we're not struggling to like have the electricity on. Like, I get that the bill might be higher, but like I will help with it if that's what you need.
For that, my parents are pretty chill. It's not like they always tell me like, oh, they struggle and stuff, but they don't really project that, oh, they struggle so hard, or like I need to struggle to be successful or something like that, or to build character. Where my thing is, they can't understand that you could have fun while you're still working towards your goal. Like, to them, having fun means wasting your time. For me, like, I love live events, I love concerts, I love festivals, I love going out and stuff. So to them, it's a waste of time. Like, you should be saving all your time right now to pursue different things, to pursue your career, and save concerts for later, to save all these other things for later. So I think that's where my generation difference is, of like working hard and playing hard. And that's one of the biggest struggles that I had when I was living at home, trying to balance out, like, always stressing like, oh, I could only go out this days of a week, I have to come home for these days so they don't think I'm going out too much, or how do I tell them I'm going to this thing.
Do you have any comments, Sharon? Do you feel like you're personally in like a tough love environment or an actual toxic? More leaning on one or the other?
I wouldn't say it's toxic. It's what you said of there's genuine toxic family households, and to call our family differences toxic is a little extreme. I think, but I don't know if I would say it's tough love either.
My biggest goal in life is for Asian parents to learn how to communicate better. If I had to change anything, they call me soft or like whatever, but I wish that they would acknowledge their emotions better instead of just being angry all the time. I know that you are worried about me, but why are you yelling at me when you're worried?
Oh,
you know, like I don't want you to express your love and your care and your worrying, like everything that they feel. The only way they know how to express it is through anger. And I feel like a lot of Asian parents are like that, and I wish that that was not the way, because like for me, I don't think that's toxic because I can see the truth behind it. Like when my parents yell at me for like drinking something cold on a cold day, like I'm like, why can't you just nicely say like, oh my god, daughter, it's like a very a cold day, like drink something hot, you know? Like,
It's like,
it
loya.
sounds better in Cantonese. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You know, like things like that. I'm just like, you didn't have to yell at me for that. Like if I was in a bad mood and if I like was feeling extra sensitive, I would cry. I'm soft. I'm sensitive. So why can't you just frame it differently? And that's the whole like they were taught to express things in anger and like that's how they grew up with love too. And so in return they're doing it to me and I'm like, don't. Hajima.
It's like they could only understand if it's within their own circle or within like what they think is right. And if you try to explain to them how you're feeling and it's something that they don't feel like is right, then they can't accept it and think that you're wrong, you're young, we've been through so much more than you have, so you need to like grow up.
It's the like very closed mindset that someone who is inferior to you, quote unquote, could know more than you.
I just don't think they understand. They lived a life a certain way and that is all they know, but they think because they lived like that, the way that they interpret situations is right. And everyone else is like they just don't get it. And I'm like, dude, I've said this saying more in the past like month than I have my entire life. It's like we can communicate, sure, but at the end of the day, we're not. It's like very clear that you don't understand me.
They're not comprehending what we're saying.
And it's also they don't really want to understand if it's outside of what they're used to.
Maybe not all, but maybe within even us three. When we compare like our parents to us, like I feel like when we notice things that aren't great, we try to change mindset or like how can I be a better person so that I don't do what like X, Y, and Z person did. Versus for our parents, I can't say that they're like striving to be better people. It's still very like probably because they did deal with like fake friends or like you have to put your education first before everything and like moving to a different country and starting from scratch and like you can't trust anybody or whatever, but like there's a level of selfishness to them where can you really have good friends or like why do you go to your friends for everything? Like you can't trust like stuff like that. I'm like, why can't you accept that there's a different reality than yours? And like we try to continue to become better people, but like for them I feel like they just stay the same.
They have so much trauma. I
tell my parents to go to therapy. Like I'm like we should all go to therapy together.
I asked my mom, I was like, have you guys considered going to therapy because it might be healthy? And she's like, well, the thing about therapy is you have to be honest and like be willing to work through it, and they've acknowledged that they're not willing to work through it and that's why they don't want to go to therapy. And I'm like, well, if you knew how much that fucked up your daughters, then maybe you would consider it. See, my theory about therapy with Asian parents is like it's not fun to go to therapy. Like it's the same kind of mental battle as they had physically when they immigrated. So they're like so closed-minded now because they don't want to work on it, and they're just like, I am the way I am, and people have to work around it because they've already suffered enough. And so now they're in their old age, they're like, I don't want to go to therapy and have to acknowledge all my faults and fix it, even though I know I have them, because it's like I'm already this late into my life, I've already settled and I've done all these things with my life, there's no need to work on it. And I'm just like, that's not true. Like everybody grows as they get older. Like I understand that you want to avoid the fact that you have these qualities that should be changed, but imagine how much good you would do for the world, for your family, if you did.
This completely different. This kind of like related to the friends thing. I know my parents don't understand why I talk to you guys or talk to my friends so much, or how I go to you guys like very often for problems, or how I have to see you guys often. Like my parents or my dad's like not so much, he's like whatever about it, but my mom genuinely does not understand that, and she glorifies the fact that she does not see her closest friends in years and they still remain quote unquote close. And she's like, why do you have to be like always like FaceTiming your friends? Why are you always texting them?
Let's quote unquote toxic. Yeah, if we would say like our mom or our dad is more toxic. For me, it's 100% my mom. Like I say parents, but honestly, I need to leave my dad out of it. It's just my mom. Maybe. I don't know. Is it your dad, Vicky?
Oh, 100%. I think it comes from he's very close-minded, so he's not willing to grow because he's like, oh, I am the way I am, versus I can see in my mom that she's more open to it. She's not good at like retaining and like learning from it, but if I tell her like, oh, I wish you would stop like this because it would hurt me, she's more, you know, open to being like, oh, I'm sorry, like I didn't realize that, versus like if I said that to my dad, then I'd be a disrespectful daughter, you know?
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were that open communication with your mom.
I've like done that with both my parents because like I draw boundaries and I need it, but then I can see from actions that my mom are more open to like changing than my dad is.
Can't say that either.
Honestly, it's pretty even, like in their own way.
Oh my god, really? You never really talk about your dad.
No, it seems like it's my mom more because she's the one who talks a lot. Like she's the like she's the one who directly says it to me, right? And then that's like the thing that like obviously makes me very angry in the moments, where my dad, he says it behind my back and then I find out about it, either accidentally hearing it,
I would hate that.
Or my mom would just tell me, be like, oh, your dad has said this before.
That's ass.
Yeah, it's like both my parents are very similar on like what they expect of me and what they think of me, but one is just says it to my face and one doesn't say it to my face, but I still know about it.
Is it because our dude, I need to go to therapy. I want to ask my therapist, like, if these are the reasons why our parents are the way that they are.
It's probably how they grew up.
I mean, obviously, this episode is for us to talk about, you know, if it's like tough love, toxic household. So we're going to talk about obviously a lot of problems that we're facing. But I think on the other side of things, I can't say I'm like happy or grateful, but at the same time, I don't hate that this is the way that I grew up. Like, obviously, there's like some things that I'm like, oh, I wish like X, Y, and Z. I'm fine, more or less fine with how things are. For example, like I've seen people who are like quote unquote more whitewashed, right?
Mm.
And I'm just like, you're so pure in this world, or you're so naive.
But sometimes I'm like, is that what makes certain people successful? Like, for example, when I watch Casey Neistat's video, he's like very reckless and like will do crazy things because he doesn't think about repercussions for some things. And like growing up, that's all he did. Like, for example, he would max out his cards when he was in his like 20s to buy certain electronics and things like that. And like that kind of built him to the person he is now and why he's so famous. But for me, like, because my parents were so financially unstable and everything was so uncertain, that's like one of the first things that they taught me is like never max out on anything, always have money in your savings. And like it built like fear almost into me to like take risks, and that's why I don't have certain success factors that like other people who were raised to be more like not fear driven, they're more risky, and so they can do these certain things that I would never do. And I'm like, but what if I didn't have those like fears in me? What if I was more like dangerous about life?
But there's a difference between of like where you are to like where Casey Neistat is, right? I think it's obviously the bigger risk you take, like maybe the investment will pay off, but there's also a lot of people who aren't getting paid off that you don't know about.
I'm not giving a chance for Sharon to process and speak.
It's just, dude, like I'm just like so flabbergasted of like, I think right now, just in my situation, I feel more resentment than I do grateful, which I'm not saying I'm not grateful, I am, but it's just like I'm not even asking to take big risks. Like I'm just like, I want to take small risks in my life to like live a better life and to like, or from what it seems like, it's like, why are my parents so fear driven about like the smallest little things that I consider like, or like that are risks, you know what I'm saying? Like where it's gone to a point where I feel like it's been instilled in my head that like you shouldn't take risks at all. Like safety is important above all else, where like from a young age, since that's been drilled into me, it's almost become like truth. And so now that I'm trying to like break, that I'm trying to like break out of it,
it's
I
so
can't
hard.
because like that's
where therapy comes in.
Damn, Sharon crying episode. Damn, every time someone cries or someone's emotional, everyone's like, damn, I'm a jam right now.
That's their trauma that they're passing down to us, and that why we go to therapy, because we want to break that trauma.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really how they live their life In my case, my parents are a little bit more risk takers. It's like they're okay with taking risks if it's within the realm of what they're comfortable with.
I feel like for our parents, the biggest risk they took was immigrating to a new country. And so then everything after that, they work to like have stability, and anything else is like very scary for them. Versus for us, like we've never been through trauma like that. We've never experienced scary situations the way they did, and we're very stable. And they'll never understand that, like, yeah, we're grateful for all those things, but now it's our turn to take risks, and our version of risks is this, like doing stuff that we care about, doing things that make us happy instead of like seeking for financial stability.
If you could explain that to them, like, sure, but if I try to say that to my parents be like, that's dumb logic.
Try to convince your parents that you're not being dumb about these decisions is the hardest thing. The other day, I was thinking, like, this is a new chapter for us, but it's also a new chapter for our parents. Up until college, they kind of know what to expect out of their children, and there was a path in their head. But then everything after that, it's like so brand new to them, and everyone around them, like friends and other relatives, their kids are also like, all of us are taking such different paths that they don't know what to do. And a part of me, it's like, are they so mean and so low-key toxic about the steps that we take? Is because they're scared. They don't know what to expect from us because they've never experienced these chapters in their own lives. Like for them, right now at where I'm at, they were just like working hella hard trying to like find a house, find shelter, and have stability. And so then for us to experience something like totally different from what they did, they're just like terrified, and they're like, I don't know what you're doing, like nothing you do makes sense to me because that's not what I did. So then they just don't know what to do with us.
My mom literally thinks that I want to be in entertainment, especially music, because I want to, I don't know, I guess like meet the idols that I love and get married to them and have a family. Hi everyone, this is Editing Jam to tell you that Sharon's audio has experienced some technical difficulties for the rest of the episode. So we're sorry that you had to hear some noise in the background, but enjoy the episode. Bye!
So dramatic. Like, why are parents so dramatic?
I know. It's like taking things to the most extreme. You know what makes being at home easier? And I realized that this like the other day is I stopped seeing most of the time my parents as parents. I see them as people. A majority of it is like going to Korea and having to do things on my own that my parents didn't know how to. And it's just like, my parents don't know everything. Like, most of the time, especially nowadays, they kind of look at me or like my sister to see what to do. And I'm starting to realize that like I'm low-key more of an adult than my parents are because I know America better than them. And there's very little things that I would be like, oh, my parents know more than me now.
You got any comments, Sharon? You've been got quiet.
Awfully quiet over there.
You either have a lot of things in your head that you like don't know how to express, or you just kind of process it.
Okay. I have a lot.
Do you think your relationship with your parents now is worse than when you were younger?
Okay, the thing is, I'm just in a tricky situation right now because up until when I had graduated college, no, when I even went to college and up until like this year, I was perfectly fine because we didn't have to go through potential like quote unquote toxic arguments because there was nothing to argue about, right? Like I went to college, I found a job, I moved out of home, whatever. So then once I moved out of home and then, for example, like Jam was in her situation at home, it was hard to understand of like, why can't your parents like be a little bit more supportive or stuff like that, where I think because I was removed from the situation, it was easy for me to think that way. And like all that time away or like good relationship, I figured that would be the same case for me when I came back. But then right now, since I'm not where they want me to be in terms of like, why would you quit your job? Or like, why are you coming back home? Like that kind of thing. It's renewed a bunch of like 16 again. Like I literally feel like I'm in high school again, where like that relationship is just like reoccurring or like coming back. And I'm like, oh, maybe things just really haven't changed. It just so happens that you had nothing to say the past 2 years because I was doing what you thought success was. And now that I have like quit my job to like figure it out, it's, oh my God, you're so out of line, or like, what are you doing kind of thing. And I'm just like, well, I don't really know what to say to you with that because I thought we made progress, but I guess we haven't. So like, and I guess right now I just feel like I don't have the quote unquote upper hand that I would like to because I'm home. Like I came back home so that I could, well, my lease ended, but like so that I can be supported under the roof and like save on rent. So like there's not much I can argue back on because yeah, they are like still helping me right now. Versus if I was completely on my own, then maybe I'd be able to like stand up to them a little bit more. But right now I just kind of have to like keep quiet and just like show them, I guess. So
yeah, I think that's part of why it's easier for me to live at home is because I have money. And so whenever, like, for example, electricity, my dad's like, why'd you keep that on? You're wasting electricity. I could be like, well, I'll pay for it. Just take it out of my bank. And then they don't have anything to say about that. Moving on, let's put ourselves into our parents' shoes.
I also say, yeah, let's put our future selves into our parents' shoes.
If we
hypothetically, if we were a parent. Whoa.
Hypothetically, of that hypothetical. What kind of parent do you think you would be?
Not gonna lie, I feel like I would unknowingly or like accidentally say something that's like out of line. But because I have seen my parents done that, even now I'm a lot more aware of like how I should be as a friend, how I should be as certain things, right? And if I actually say something out of line, I will take that active step into correcting myself or improving myself. I like to think that.
I think I would also be a little bit I can see where the hypocritical part may come in terms of like being a tiger mom. But how do I explain this? If my child, okay, one, if I even wanted to become a parent, that's gonna have to take a lot of work for me. Like with my partner, with whoever I decide to have a kid with. Like it's a partnership, right? And also like a lot of like work internally in therapy, whatever. It's gonna take a lot of working to do to become a parent. But like if my child were to tell me, for example, I don't think education is useful for me, I want to drop out and like blah 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 blah. Sorry, like I'm not gonna take that well. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, sure, do whatever you want. Of course, I'm gonna be like, no, you're gonna finish your career. But like that may be like to my parents how they see me of me quitting my job. That's like me telling them I'm not going to college kind of thing. So like, I could see where it would be very hard for me to be completely supportive, but case by case, I don't know.
See, I'm trying to think of like what would be weird to us the same way what we do is weird to our parents, and like how would I react to that? Like for our parents, it's weird for us to choose happiness over like stability or like getting into relationships or multiple relationships and like sleeping with multiple people and things like that. All those concepts are very weird for our parents. And I'm like, what would be weird in the later generation? And like one of the few things I can think of is like dropping out of high school to pursue like content creating because that's hella popular in people nowadays. And I'm just like, how would I react to that? And I don't think I'd also react to that very well. I'd be like, you're dropping out of high school to pursue content creating?
And they're gonna be like, you're a content creator. I'd be like, well, let's pretend I'm not.
Yeah. And I'm just like, bro, like that's so important. Like high school, it's so normal for people to get a bachelor's nowadays. It's the same concept as like graduating high school, basically. Like everyone graduates from college at this point, even if it's a 2-year, a CC, like whatever you do, like at minimum, I would like you to be an undergraduate.
I think I'm gonna instill at a very young age of like, up until you become a legal adult, you're under me. Like you are my child, you're under my care kind of thing. And I want you to do things that for your benefit you are going to pursue. You're going to go to school, you're going to pursue a higher education, and you're going to like do extracurriculars of what you want to do and like blah 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 in order to see like experience that aspect of life, right? But like once you become an adult, then you can do what you want. Or like, you know what I mean? Because if you're like 17 and you want to drop out of school to like pursue content, no. But like if you're like 21 and like you graduated college and maybe you want to like drop out of your job to pursue something else, do whatever you want, I think. So I think it's just going to be up until you're an adult. Like I think I would want them to know that they're still not an adult yet. So
yeah, I don't want you to grow up too early because that's just, it's like, why?
You know what the simplest solution here is?
Not be a parent. There's too many factors to parenting. It's just easier to opt out.
Dude, I just have this fear of like, I'm just gonna meet the love of my life and then they're just be like, dude, I want to have like 3 kids.
Men always want kids.
Bro.
It's very, very rare that they don't.
Even now, I swear God, I'm on Hinge and usually people don't say anything. But with the moment it says like want kids, it's like an automatic like already like no, I only want to talk to you because I only want.
I wonder if there's a study out there that shows like when you're in a relationship, who wanted a kid more and that's why you ended up with a kid. So I want to say it's because of men.
Wait, I don't think I know anybody else who doesn't want kids.
Oh, like all my friends don't.
Oh, really?
Well, it's not that they don't, but they understand like it's really, really hard to like want to have a child.
No. I'm not even saying that. It's like if I typically ask a girlfriend, do you want kids? It's not a, oh, I think it's something to like really consider. It's always a yes. Like no hesitation.
Oh, mine is always like it's a really hard ask. Do you think you'll become your parent?
Hell no.
Yeah, I don't think we would. I think we're really good at addressing what's wrong and trying to fix that. So I don't think we will be.
I think there's a chance of maybe I'll pick up some traits along the way, but I'll realize it and try to correct that or try to make things better.
I think we just have resources to not be our parents. Like our parents didn't have exposure into other people's lives. They didn't have resources to therapy. They don't have those things versus we do. So I think we can just like really evolve as people.
Or even just like if all of us has kids or if two of us had kids or even just one of us has kids, you know, we could still turn to each other. It's like, wait, I did this. Do you think it's X, Y, and Z?
Oh, true. Like we are able to put aside pride. Like I'm not embarrassed to be like, I think I fucked up and like, this is what's wrong. But for our parents, they would never go to anybody with that. They'll just run with it. Yeah, I feel like that's the biggest difference, like the pride or like wanting to look the best. We don't have that. We're humble.
I mean, I still have that. I'm just okay with not doing that with you guys.
Yeah. Like you have people in your life where you're willing to like take off that mask versus like not our parents for sure. Anything that we've learned that we think will improve from our parents? No, that's the wrong question. I'll read it directly because I can't paraphrase for shit. What have you learned from your parents that makes you want to improve?
Be more of a listener when it comes to friendships and being okay with opening up more to friends. I think those were the two things.
Mine is being open-minded. Like I don't like the superior and inferior mindset. Like yes, I will be your parent, but I also want to be your friend. Ooh, I think that's like something people talk about is like, do you want to be a parent? Do you want to be a friend? And I want to be both. Like I don't want them to feel afraid to tell me things, or I don't want them to feel afraid to be like, I think that's wrong of you to do, and I don't want to be like, well, I'm the parent, so I'm right. You know, I don't want to be that.
It's like I want to be a parent where they feel like they could come to me, guide them through whatever obstacle they're going through, whatever problems they're going through, but also as a friend where they feel comfortable enough that they could share whatever their feelings they're feeling right now as if they would share to a friend.
Yeah, because there's definitely a lot of life problems that I experience now that I do want to tell my parents, but out of fear of how they'll react, I don't. And so I don't want that relationship with my child because I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm older and more experienced. So like, yeah, there's certain things that I'll never experience, but at least I can help you through it. But you, Sharon, what have you learned?
Oh, I think Vicky took my answer. It was basically just like being open-minded, but also being their parent and come to person for advice kind of thing.
Go-to person?
Yeah. Because like when I want advice, I'm not going to go to my parents. I already know what they're going to say 9 out of 10 times, right? Versus I would want my child to come to me like, oh, I wonder what mom's perspective. I wonder what mom's perspective will be, you know? Like I'll be able to.
She can't even say mom.
Hold on, guys. We're 24. We can't. No. That's not. I'm not at an age where that sounds cute to me. Okay?
I want to be close enough with my child, if I were ever to be a mom, where they come to me for sex advice. That would be like the best relationship. Like they wouldn't be like, oh my God, let me try.
No, I don't know if I would want them to come to me for sex advice, but I want them to feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, like practice safe sex.
Or like boy advice.
Well, yeah, I want them to be like, well, it's my first time. Like, what should I do? Like, I don't want the glory details of like what you doing with the mans, but I would like to know when's your first time. I will put you on birth control. Like, I don't want to go through what I had to experience where I did everything behind my parents' back because that shit is scary.
Yeah, I haven't had the sex talk from my mom in a while, and that's how I know she thinks I'm really single.
I've never gotten it. I kind of want my parents to give it to me.
I learned really late.
Well, that concludes our therapy session about our families. I hope you guys can relate or at least get a different point of view of your parents or something like along those lines. I don't know. But it was helpful for us. I feel like I learned something new about each of you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye.